On to business news, speaking at an event at the Palwatha Sugar Factory, Minister of Sugar Industry Development Lakshman Senaviratne said that the quantity of sugar imported to the country can be slashed by 50% in the future.
The Palwatha Sugar Factory began its second production term today after it was taken over by the government in November 2011. A large amount of foreign exchange is spent for the importation of sugar. That amount is close to the amount spent on fuel. We believe that we can cut down the quantity of sugar that is imported to the country by 50% in the next few years. At the end of 2012, sugar was imported for 94% of the domestic requirement, while only 6% was produced domestically.
Australia's Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Brendan O'Connor, says that a further 28 Sri Lankan irregular maritime arrivals have been returned to Colombo after failing to meet Australia's international obligations. According to the official website of the Ministry of Immigration and Citizenship in Australia, the return of the individuals takes the number of Sri Lankans sent home to 1,206, 994 of them involuntarily since August last year. O'Connor added that returning the group of Sri Lankans sends a powerful message. He said, quote, "The Australian government is making it crystal clear that those who pay smugglers are throwing their money away and risking their lives in the process," unquote.
Time now for Action TV.
The Dumbara prison was declared open at the behest of the former prisons commissioner before construction activities of the prison complex concluded. However, even his predecessor has failed to complete construction of this prison. The prison officers who manage this prison should be commended for maintaining order within the prison after it was declared open on the 25th of March amidst many shortcomings. However, the chief jailer and 7 officers of the prison have been suddenly transferred. When broadly examining the cause for the transfer, one would realize who committed the wrong and the gravity of the mistake. A written notice is needed to transfer prisoners from one prison to another. 22 female prisoners who behaved in an unruly manner in the Walikada remand prison were transferred to the Dumbara prison. However, if this transfer was done based on the wishes of the Commissioner General of Prisons, then a notice should have been provided to the chief jailer of the Dumbara prison. However, the chief jailer had not received such a notice. If the Commissioner General does not accept responsibility for the transfer of inmates, then the Superintendent of the prison where the inmates were initially stationed should take responsibility. The Superintendent of the Bogambara prison, who is incidentally the twin brother of the Superintendent of the Walikada prison, can also evade responsibility if he received a letter regarding the transfer from the Commissioner General of Prisons and if the letter was duly forwarded to the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison, who is in charge of the Dumbara prison as well. If the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison received such a notice from the Superintendent of the Walikada prison, then it is his responsibility to forward it to the Chief Jailer of the Dumbara prison. However, the 22 inmates were transferred on the 18th of this month without any notice. Therefore, either the Commissioner General of Prisons, the Superintendent of the Walikada prison, or the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison is at fault, or they could be collectively at fault. In such a backdrop, it is interesting to note that the chief jailer and 7 others have been transferred for sending these inmates back to Walikada prison on the 20th of this month. One cannot accept the fact that this transfer took place without the knowledge of the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison, as the Dumbara prison uses vehicles from the Bogambara prison to transfer its inmates. Moreover, it is the responsibility of the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison to release vehicles to be used by the Dumbara prison. If a bus from the Bogambara prison travelled to the Dumbara prison in Palekale and transported these inmates to Colombo without the knowledge of the Superintendent of the Bogambara prison, then this official should resign from his position and an inquiry should be called. When considering the transfer of inmates to and from Dumbara, one would realize the true culprit. Secretary to the Ministry of Rehabilitation and Prison Reforms, this one is over to you.
Connecting the Dots, Celebrating the Beauty in Sri Lanka's Diversity, a photography exhibition by Chris Elms, the Press and Information Officer of the US Embassy in Colombo, was launched yesterday. The exhibition will be held until the end of June at the American Center in Colombo.
Chris Elms was born and raised in New York, joined the U.S. Foreign Service in 2008 with his first tour in Guadalajara, Mexico. Elms began his tenure as the Press and Information Officer of the U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka in 2011. Since then, Chris Elms has traveled the length and breadth of the island, giving into his hobby of photography and capturing over 1,000 photographs. The exhibition, which commenced last evening at the American Center in Colombo, has a collection of 25 photographs. U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Michelle J. Sisson, officials from the embassy, the media and well-wishers were present at the exhibition.
And in my time here, I've traveled around the country a fair bit, and I've been fascinated by the country, by its people, by its culture, and I've been struck by the beauty of the culture and the people. And I thought that it would be an excellent opportunity for me to sort of display my observations as an American living here temporarily on how I saw how beautiful and how diverse and rich Sri Lanka is. I tried to come up with a unified theme for my pictures in Sri Lanka, and they were so varied, and it was only when I connected the dots that I realized that it's this variation, this diversity that really makes Sri Lanka beautiful.
This is incidentally the maiden photography exhibition by Chris Elms.
Starting off your sports bulletin with a look at some cricket news. Nishantha Ranatunga, the Secretary of Sri Lanka Cricket, has told China's Xinhua news agency that Sri Lanka Cricket is ready to assist investigations into claims that two Indian bookies may have been involved in the Sri Lanka Premier League.
Indian media reported yesterday that two owners of a franchise in the SLPL held last year were involved in match fixing. Although an official announcement has not been made by Sri Lanka Cricket, SLC Secretary Nishantha Ranatunga had commented on the matter to the Xinhua news agency. However, Tournament Director of the SLPL, Ajit Jayasekara, told Sports First yesterday that the two individuals were in no way involved with the SLPL.
The warm-up match between Sri Lanka and Pakistan ahead of the ICC Champions Trophy was abandoned today without a ball being bowled due to the inclement weather. The match was to be played at the Edgbaston Stadium in Birmingham and was scheduled to begin at 5:30 this evening Sri Lankan time.
And finally, in some rugby news, the Sri Lanka Referees Association has imposed a one-year ban on the referee that officiated the recent match between Royal College Colombo and Nisipatana College Colombo. In the match in question, Royal players had walked off the pitch, citing unruly playing conditions. Meanwhile, Nisipatana College beat St. Peter's College Bambalapitiya in a Division A Inter-Schools Rugby League match that was played today.
The match was played at the Sugadadasa Stadium in Colombo, where both schools came out strongly in the first half. However, Nisipatana College led the first half 9 points to 6 by scoring through 3 penalties. Scoring another 12 points in the second half of the game, Nisipatana College beat St. Peter's College Bambalapitiya 21 points to 19 at the long whistle. Nisipatana College scored through 2 tries, 3 penalties and a conversion.
Now, before we leave you tonight, Krishna, does the concept of brain surgery frighten you?
Well, it does, and it would frighten most of the general public, I believe.
Now, can you imagine playing a guitar during surgery?
Not really.
Well, that is what this courageous man, Brad Carter from Los Angeles, did as he underwent brain surgery. Now, doctors hope that it would help alleviate future patients' fear of brain surgery. We leave you tonight with these compelling visuals.